Welcome back to part 2 of our podcast, and we're just excited to be here. And we're going to focus on something that's really new to me and Renata, and really actually new to our kids too. And well, one of you hadn't even experienced it yet, and that's grandparenting.
Welcome to the Ignite podcast, where biblical wisdom meets modern parenting, where it's our mission to help empower and equip parents and caregivers, as well as the local church, walking with you in implementing faith-filled language for everyday moments through God's love, a blend of encouragement, real stories, and honest conversations, so families can actively engage with their children and transmit their faith to the next generation. Let's get into it.
It was such a fun time. We as we raised y'all, and then I'll never forget February 27th, 2016, when we get the phone call and says, you're about to be grandparents. Well, we didn't like that name. So I'm Papa J and this is Gigi. And we love all the perks that come with grandparenting. But like parenting, we didn't have a manual. So we're trying to walk through this thing and fill it out. I grew up away from my grandparents, so I didn't really get to spend a lot of time, maybe a few summers with them off and on. Your mom grew up in the same town as her grandparents and was there constantly and consistently, went to church with them and things of that nature. And so we're coming from two different backgrounds. And so maybe as we go through this podcast, we can shed some light and help some people that we can raise grandkids in a courageous and intentional way so that they will serve the Lord and see God do some great things. For me, I think in your mom, we really wanted to be legacy builders. We wanted to take and just say, we wanted to just leave a legacy for our grandkids. So as we've learned from the previous episode, you two are raising your kids differently, and Jathan, I think we kind of can discern that you're going to raise your kids differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how can grandparents and parents, how can we have open and honest communication about our parenting styles and methods without causing tension, friction within the home? You have any thoughts or processes that you've thought through?
I would say I learned, actually going back again before kids, in premarital counseling, the people that were counseling us recommended that anytime there's a question, you should always address your parents and let your spouse address their parents on things that could be a tension building moment. Mm-hmm. And so applying the same to now raising our kids, now you guys helping us raise our grandkids, I've tried to be that person that communicates with y'all in the sense of, here's some things that we prefer, here's things that we like, or the ways that we raise our kids, so that you guys are well informed. And for me, I'm more of a blunt type person. And so if you ask, I'll tell. And if I want you to know, I'll tell.
Yeah.
And I think that's big in not assuming that your parents, my kids' grandparents, are going to know what I prefer or what I parent like.
Right.
I have to assume that they don't know, right, and be honest, like, this is the way, on this trip that you go with them, or the time that you're picking them up from school, if you're able to do that, whatever the case is, I need to be as open and honest with my preferences, so that way there's not that tension. So
yeah.
And I think not just balancing the preferences of us, because it's probably easier with us, but you want to respect the in-laws too.
Right.
You want to make sure Hannah's okay with her preferences and Chase, and we're good when the time comes. So that's it.
Well, and so that adds a different caveat, because I was Chase's pastor, your husband, I was Hannah's pastor. And so we have a different relationship, still have to obey, or still need to search that out because of the different backgrounds. But I did know them, your mom and I knew them at a different level than we even do Morgan. And so we're trying to work at learning them. And so your mom and I didn't have manuals, so we're watching people in the church and how they, some grandparents there, and that's what we model. And our church in Searcy, we really had Brad and Sheila that were there that were your grandparents. And so, man, they just did some amazing things with you. I don't know what you thought about them. And then I think Tommy and Andrew from Texarkana were just amazing to speak into your lives. So any thoughts about maybe in today's world, because grandparents live so far away, that some of those, this whole concept maybe of adopted grandparents and how that you can communicate to them of how they can help your kids grow in the faith?
I think, yeah, if you identify those people in your life, it's a very beneficial thing. I think that there was a level of, there had to be a level of honesty, and like, these are some areas that I might not have the knowledge in, but you could really help me in that. Mm-hmm. I think back to, Dad, you always had the saying that it was mom's toolbox. You didn't own a toolbox in the house.
Right.
And so
I still don't.
He still says that.
Still says that. And I really benefited from the adoptive grandparent in Searcy, Brad, where he would teach me, working with my hands and working with tools, working outside. We were, they had animals. It was like a mini farm. So it was, raising goats and chickens and cows in the pasture. And so that was so far out of my normal home life that it was exposing me to a different type of life, to where I was built as a well-rounded kid. Yeah. And so I think on your part, you don't, you can take that as a positive. It's easy to say, man, I really wish I could have taught my kid that. But if we're open and saying, you know what, that's not really my wheelhouse, but I trust them with my kids, then that's where the benefit can come in. If we're not defensive and I have to be the one to teach my kid everything.
Yeah, because parenting today seems like it's more organic. And so for your mom and I as new grandparents, I was raised where the response from my mom and dad, which would be your grandparents, would have been because I said so. But today it's like it's more organic. So it's even hard from our perspective to watch and okay, we got to train ourselves that you're raising your kids in a more organic kind of just letting these things happen, and the feel that we want to honor you as parents, and we want to partner with you with the values that you have. And so the only way we can do that is with that open communication, knowing what values you do have. So your mom, I know, is real good about, well, I can't let you have that because it's got red 40 in that, because you don't want that. That's not what you want. That's not what you value. Now, just full confession, there are times we sneak that in, but not that you didn't know that. But anyway, I think that's
wow.
Wow.
It's a shocker.
My kids will not be staying at your house.
Can I revisit something though?
Sure.
Sure. I think you went
This is your show.
Little too fast on the preferences. Both of you said you have preferences. Can you say what you meant by, what do you mean by preferences? I think I know.
I mean, you hit on it in a joking way, but that's one of the preferences is
yes,
the
and I want
food.
You to elaborate.
Yeah,
there.
So one of the things in our house that we're not perfect in, but we try to avoid food dyes. There's so many dyes in our food that are linked to several different issues, and so for us, that is a thing that we try to avoid, and so that's what I was meaning by, if I don't communicate that to you,
I know.
Then how could you know?
Right.
And we know that Gigi's popsicles are better than the ones at the house.
Of course they are.
Better.
But
that's right.
But yeah, that would be one of our preferences.
You both have told me, this is things that we do at our house, Mom, and this is when you keep them, we would like you to. We've always tried to honor that.
Well, you more than me.
Well, we both do.
I know, but
we
you
try to
more than me.
honor. You both will tell us, and that's why I wanted you to elaborate on your preferences, because we know in your house you raise them differently. You raise them how you want them to be raised, and we've always tried to honor what you've told us. This is you would give it me. Jocelyn would give me a list of like, this is the things that we do at this time. And, you know, and I love that because I'm like, I want to try and keep it the same, you know, but that's what I was trying to say is elaborate a little bit on your preferences.
I mean, we too avoid food dyes, but
Yeah.
Enough of the food dyes. We'll switch it up.
I'm just saying, you know, shows that we watch or certain
Yeah, right,
bedtimes or nap
Yeah.
time or don't nap or where, like, I don't feel like I have a whole lot of preferences, do I?
I mean,
I
like
don't
I
think
would
we have
say, you would say, okay, I like him to go to bed at this time. That's a
Yeah,
preference.
yeah. I think that's reasonable.
It is.
Is that-
Okay.
Yeah.
It is.
No one
But
says
sometimes
that.
when they
Just
come to
any
Papa
of this
J and
victim
Gigi's, we're
mentality.
like, sky's the limit. You know?
Well, and sometimes what I think is amazing is your kids will tell us, "Oh, mom doesn't let us, or dad doesn't let us watch that, or we can't eat that,"
and they know.
and they know because you've done a great job at communicating with them. And sometimes I have to pull Gigi back because she'll say, "Well, that's okay. You're at Gigi's house," and
Yeah, right.
okay, well, maybe not, but anyway. But yeah, we try to honor that. But yeah, that's a good point. Asking them. So sometimes we have to ask, you know, help us to know what that is.
Mhm.
So how do you handle, so how can grandparents help you handle even spiritual formation in your kids' lives? I know for us, when I grew up, my grandfather and I grew up back in the day where you had to handwrite, you know, letters and mail to them. You probably don't know what that is. You know, put a stamp on it and send it, no kind of thing. And there was no FaceTime or none of that. And so the only time I got spiritual formation was when I went to their house, and then we would talk about the things of the Lord and all that. How can in today's world, with the technology that we have, because we live 2 hours, 2.5 hours from you, Jocelyn, 5 hours, 4.5 hours from you, Jordan, and how can with today's technology, can we as grandparents help you in the spiritual formation of your kids? Or maybe you don't need our help and you would rather like, hey, we can handle it. I don't know.
I think for mine, just having conversations with them about God, about the Bible. They really are at an age where they really like learning about the Bible and stories, and to hear it from someone other than just us. And you know that story too, and you know, just getting to read it with them and praying with them. I think that they would really enjoy that.
Right. So it was fun to come to Grandparent Day, and so to hang out with your kids and say, let them tell me their stories and their friends, and then spend money on them. They like that. Yeah, that's their love language right there.
Their dad told them to do that.
Yeah. But but as a grandparent, you know, we feel like in today's world, it takes an army to raise a generation of believers, and so. We love hearing the stories, like when you sent us what Stratton's salvation was, and we have that, and Judah, you send us stuff like that, and so it enables us to ask the questions, the spiritual questions, so we're not shooting in the dark. We're able to say, oh, tell us about that story, or tell us about your, you know, the spiritual development there, or even the relationships that they may be struggling with.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback off the conversation, like, I think us as parents are the primary source, and you guys are here to reaffirm. I think it was on one of the previous podcasts, they talked about how counseling is 95% in the home, 5% was the counselor.
Yeah.
I would assume the same kind of principle is true here, so where it should be the parent is the primary source, but you're there to help fill in the gap that, you know, we fall short in, or to reaffirm the things that we're teaching.
Right.
So that way they're not only getting it from us, the parent, but they're also getting it reaffirmed by the grandparent. And there are ways that they connect with you that they won't and can't connect with us.
Right.
And then it goes deeper, because then they're seeing that, okay, this is not something that in my immediate family we do, but this is something that for generations now my family is a Christ believing family.
Right.
And that, I think, reaffirms that this is something that lasts. It communicates that to our kids, that this is something I can trust in, because over the course of time, it has stood true for Papa J, it has stood true for Gigi, and now my aunts and uncles.
Right.
And so that's a way that I think is just to be that reaffirming voice.
So go ahead.
I think some of my favorite memories growing up, because we didn't live in the same town as our grandparents, was getting to go to, like when we would go to church with Nana, going to her Sunday school class, or going to church with her and seeing how she would worship, or seeing how she participated in church, or even calling her on the phone and talking to her about church and praying and those sorts of things. So, and FaceTime, you guys FaceTime them all the time. So,
because we really feel like we want to connect our past, which is not just your mom and I, it's our whole family's past, to their future, what God has for them. So they do have that thread that goes throughout, that it's more than just a single slot in time. It's a history that's being built. And where I have felt inadequate or may feel shortchanged, that if each generation we can help build, then by the time whatever generation comes, hopefully we build a strong generation that will help them. And let me go back and circle back around to your comment, Jordan, about communicating with them, and Jocelyn's about communicating with them, because when you give us that kind of information about what's going on in their world and what's happening in their spiritual world and in their school world, with their friend world, that enables your mom and me to ask questions that require an answer rather than duh, huh, or what, so we can actually drill deep into, or at least deeper on their aspect. So I said you had given me some information about Stratton, and I was sitting there over the holidays, and so I was able to ask him some of those deep questions, and he was just sitting there beside me, and so I could begin to drill down. And I thought, well, he's going to leave, but he didn't. He stayed right there, and we were able to connect, and I thought it was a pretty cool way. So, Jathan, do you remember any ways that you connected with maybe your Nana or Grammy or even your adopted grandparents, that
some memories
you might have?
Kind of what both of them have said. So with Jordan, with Brad, just learning new things, because in our house we were very city, and so going to Brad's with the animals, fishing, learning those different aspects, him teaching me those things. It can also just help me connect with other people. So again, we were more city, didn't like to get dirty. But then when we got to Brad, he's teaching us these things. He's teaching us to dig for our own worms. He's teaching us to fish. Well, now that can help me relate to my friends who are more country, who are not as much more city. And then Jocelyn, what she was saying with Nana, just going to her Sunday school, watching her worship, and just seeing like, okay, it's not just my parents. Like, it's not just my intermediate family. Like, everybody's doing this. Like, so it's like outside other people are doing this, and they're kind of having that influence. So
yeah.
I'll also add too, it was back in the previous podcast, but we talked about how, when your kids know that you care about what they care about, then the door of communication's open. And I think you guys have done a good job in that. I don't think specifically with my boys, and I know probably for Jocelyn's too, like my boys know that you guys care about what they care about. They know if we call Gigi and Papa J, they're going to be all up in my business of like, what did you do today? What did you play with? And then when they're here, it's not just we're babysitting, but we're being active, like we're playing with the kids, so that the door is open, not just for us as parents, but you guys as well, to speak into their life. So that's big in being active grandparents.
Right. Well, so February 27th, 2016, we get the call. Now we have 5 grandkids, and I've never been a grandparent before, so I'm trying to figure all this out. So one of my favorite verses is Psalm 78 in the first 8 verses, but particularly verse number 4 says that we will not hide these truths from our children. we will tell them to the next generation about the glorious deeds of the Lord, about his power and his mighty wonders. For he issued his laws to Jacob, he gave instructions to Israel, he commanded our ancestors to teach them to their children, so that the next generation might know them, even the children not yet born. So there you go, we got you in there. That they will in turn teach their own children. So our job, I'm like, yes, Lord, that's what we're supposed to do. And we're supposed to invest in you so then you will teach the next generation. And so that's really what we've tried to do. And I've heard you say, Jordan, and you say, Jocelyn, and Jathan's alluded to the fact that we can't let the world teach our kids. We have to be proactive in teaching our kids. And according to Psalm 7:8, what we just read, we're the ones that are supposed to be doing that. And when we do that, our grandkids will be raised in a powerful way. And so that is something that I think for me was important, is to say, what does God's word say about raising grandkids? I don't know. Do you have anything?
I was just thinking that it's important that we stay intentional about learning the society right now, because it's so changing.
Mm-hmm.
And like some of the lingo that the kids use, and I think, as we get older, we lose touch with society. But I think it's important that we stay. I know they
Could you say
are
that again for the listeners?
me at all times.
As you get older, he said.
As I get older.
Yeah.
We don't know those lingos, and I think it's important. I mean, the three of them are always educating us on what's the new word, what's that word.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for our grandkids that they, that we know also what they're dealing with,
Right.
because it would be easy as we get older to withdraw from knowing what's going on around us.
Right.
And me as a school teacher, I'm in with those kids right now. And so I hear all of those things. But if you're a grandparent and you're not in the school system, it's easy to withdraw from what's going on around us. And then we lose touch with what's going on with our kids and what are they learning. But I think as grandparents, it's important to know, unless you have these three that are always telling you, Mom, did you know that word? Did you know the word that you just used means this? Oh, okay. Don't.
She says it as out of experience.
Yes, she does.
Of using the wrong word at the wrong time.
Yeah, and words are involved.
Could you give us an example?
No,
Yeah. Let me hear an example.
I cannot. Well, Ohio is one.
There you go.
There you go.
Ohio.
Yeah,
Be
let's slow
careful.
down.
Because
Yeah.
honestly, I'm not sure I would even know how to use it
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah.
That's an example.
It's a
though.
state. Yeah, it's a state.
Yeah.
Right. Ohio is a state.
It is a state.
Yeah.
Unless you're a Gen Alpha, and then it means something different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask them.
Yeah.
I'm Gen Z.
So, any final things that you could say? This is what our advice to you as parents, and how to connect. Your mom and I would love to be in the same town with y'all, and obviously we're not. So you had mentioned FaceTime and those things. So how can parents, whether they're close or far away, how can they engage with you as parents?
I think for me, one of the, I would say most important is just being the support for us, because you've parented before and we haven't.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that times have changed, but we could still use and will use you as a backbone when we go through things or our kids go through things and we don't know what to do. So not only being there for our kids, but being there for us too.
Okay.
Yeah. The times change, but the principles don't. And so they, like she said, just being there for not only our kids, but us. And then again, like I said earlier, just when our kids are there with you, we've made, especially us not living here, we've made the effort to, whether it's y'all coming down or us coming up here or FaceTiming, y'all are being active and checking in and being engaged in what they're doing.
Right.
Not just, okay, the kids are here for a week, I've got to babysit them, but really investing in them emotionally, relationally.
Right.
so that, our kids are younger, but there will be that day that they go through their own crisis, and the things that we're building now are creating doors that will stay open for not just me, not just Hannah, but you guys to speak in to their lives. And Hannah's parents too do a great job of that as well, investing in them.
Yeah.
And so I think, being engaged and active in what they care about will pay dividends over time.
Right. So before we close, I want to circle back around, because somebody may be watching, and it just hit me that Hannah, your wife, my daughter-in-law, our daughter-in-law, I should say.
Our daughter-in-law.
Yes, I should. Yeah. I think she has a different. Your situation is a little different. That maybe some of our listeners are tuning in, and I've been amazed at how she has been so inclusive of the grandparents. And here's what I mean. So her mom and dad divorced, and then they remarried, and then her dad recently passed away. And so here's the step grandmother, and yet Hannah has so included her that can you just take a few moments to maybe explain, because some of our listeners may be in a situation similar to that.
It's hard.
And it is hard.
Yeah.
And so before we just kind of wrap this up and just like everything's this neat little package, maybe you could help us understand some of that or whatever.
Yeah, life, has its ups and downs, and it's a new world, just like this is new for us. I come from a home that is together. And so marrying somebody who had a divorce in their family is me learning a different ripple into life. Mm-hmm. And so for us, I've watched the benefit of us including those people, because their voices into our kids' lives. They share the similar values of a family that's built on Christ.
Right.
And so, we walked through some valleys of her dad passing away. And throughout that, we've kind of grown even closer to Joe, who's the stepmother-in-law.
Yeah.
But for our kids, it's just Mimi. It's just another part of our grandparenting.
Right.
And we've done our best to include and not exclude, because we value her. I value Hannah's family just as much as your input in my kid's life. Because again, going back to the adoptive grandparents in my life, they're going to provide a different context of life that I can't speak to. I haven't walked through that valley. I haven't walked through the highs and lows that they've walked through, but they can speak to it, and pointing, because it's built on Christ, they can say, this is where God's been at through the valley moments. This is where God's been at through the mountaintops. Mm-hmm. And again, they can provide that different context that I can't.
Yeah.
And I would be a fool to exclude that, because I don't know what the future holds for my kids. I don't know the valleys that they'll go through, and the tools that Hannah's parents or Hannah's step parents could provide to them could be the very tool that they need later in life. And I could have excluded that. Yeah. And so we've done our best to be as inclusive of grandparents as possible for the benefit of our kids.
Right. Well, I think some of our listeners might hear that, and I think it'll be a blessing to them. As we kind of wrap this up, John Maxwell Edmonds wrote a poem for those who gave their lives fighting the enemies in World War II. And the last two lines, they're fascinating to me. He wrote, "When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today. For your tomorrow, we gave our today." And so when I look at our grandkids, the 5 now and the however many more we'll have.
15,
yeah. Here's what I know is the 5 now and however many Jathan and Morgan have, they need to be filled with hope, with identity, and with meaning. And if we as grandparents can help it do that, then I think we can, they're the next group of husbands and wives and parents that they will be raised up in a more healthy environment. And I think we will have succeeded in what God has wanted us to do to leave that legacy. So I don't know. You have anything you want to end with, dear? Or
No, I think
that's it, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any of you want to say anything, or as we conclude? All right. Well, thank you for listening to this podcast, and we hope you benefited from something we might have said today.
Thank you for joining us in these powerful conversations that support real talk on navigating faith-based parenting. And if you love this episode as much as we did, be sure to like and subscribe so we can invite you back. And connect with us on our socials, Ignite Parenting on Facebook and Instagram, or visit igniteparenting.com. We hope we've inspired you to learn and grow in raising lifelong followers of Jesus, building our church, our family.